Okay, looks like we're about ready to go. If everybody will take their seats and settle in. Well, we had that problem earlier. There you are. You're hot.
1, 2.
Well, thanks for sharing, Roy. Right. We are at Niagara Falls, Buffalo, New York, CALLERLAB Convention 37, March 28th, 29th through 31. And this session is named Don't Share the Music. I'm your moderator. To my left, Elmer Sheffield. To his left, Mr. Roy Gata. And further to the left, Mr. Wade Driver. Sorry? Far out. We're glad to see you in here. There's been a lot of discussion for a long time now about the issues that we're facing in the music community. I have don't let these gentlemen say the most, but a couple of things. CALLERLAB has a responsibility to the activity as a whole to address the situation, and we're trying to take steps to help protect what's going on in the music industry. I'm not highly technical. I do use a computer for my music because I can't carry the vinyl anymore. It's too heavy, too much of it. But beyond that, very few people will be talented enough with computers for a long time to come to create and make their own singing calls. You can get alternative music to use, some of which is reasonable. I've often said a lot of which is not, but there's some. You might be able to make do with that. But my personal feeling is that singing calls are such a critical, vital tool, an aspect of the activity. When they go away, we're going to be sorry. We're already sorry. We're not seeing much new being produced. It's a very, very valuable tool. It's just so incredible, and we can't afford to let it go away. So that's part of the problem that we're faced with. CALLERLAB will do all that it possibly can to help stop this and get people to do the right thing. And that's why we're here to talk about it. We're glad you're here, and we hope you take away some good ideas and take away that sense of responsibility that we have back to the activity. And with that, I'll turn it over to Elmer.
Well, we've kind of beat this subject over and over, and none of us really have the answer. Maybe you have the answer for us today, but in just a brief statement, I can tell you that giving away or sharing your music, or however you want to put it, has created part of our problem in being able to produce new music for you, because naturally we have to sell some records in order to recoup our money, and even though we're not depending on record sales for our livelihood, thank goodness, we'd like for it to at least cover the cost of doing it. There are other things that have also caused, the drop off of sales, and we know that. Vinyl is kind of on the way out, the way we see it, even though I still use vinyl because I'm old-fashioned, don't know how to use a computer. But we can see that the computers and the iPods and things are probably the way this is going to go, and that makes sharing music a lot easier to do. A guy comes up and he says, "Man, I really like that song you just did, and could I have it?" And he sticks a little stick in your computer, and he leaves with that song that me and Wade didn't get to sell. And so it's a problem that we are kind of searching for some answers maybe, or some help in kind of slowing it down at least. And it boils down to, and we've all discussed this, it boils down to it's really a moral issue. It's not really a legal issue. It is to a certain extent, but not. I mean, we're not going to send the law after you if you copy our music, but it's a thing where you got to say, do I want to keep getting new music? Do I want to have the latest tunes to do for my dancers? They hear the songs on the radio, and they go to your square dance, and they get to hear that same song as a square dance. And if we reach the point where we just can't produce anymore, then that's going to be a thing of the past. And all of us, I'm sure, have enough records to last us for the rest of our careers, but they're older stuff. And then you got, if they are records, you got to convert them over to something you can play through your computer or whatever you're using. So my part today is more to kind of, when we get through with each one giving their little presentation, is for you to talk to us and give us some ideas and your thoughts of what we can do together to cut down at least the exchanging of music, which is not the best thing to do for all of us. And then maybe we can answer you back and hear your ideas. And that's kind of my part in this program. And I'll yield to Roy Gatto.
And just before Roy starts, one of the things that I've taken to doing, been given the opportunity at a caller's schools or clinics, is asking callers not to put other callers on the spot by walking up to them and saying, hey, that was really great, can I get a copy of that? Because for some folks it's pretty hard to say, no, I don't do that, or that's illegal, or even trying to find a nice way to say it. You know, the best I can think to say when somebody asks me is, I'm sorry, I just don't feel that's right, I'm not comfortable doing that. I'll be glad to write it down for you. I'll get you the information, that type of thing. But callers shouldn't go to other callers and put them on spot. And the less frequently that happens, the less it gets shared. It's a small step, but it's a step. And I just think that the more of us that hold the line, the better luck we might have. Roy, please.
Sure. For those of you who may or may not be familiar with AA procedures, my name is Roy Gatto, and I have shared music. I get up each day and I pray that I won't share music that day. Okay. Is there anybody out there who can honestly say they have never gotten a piece of music illegally? Guys are still using records? There you go. Okay. And we don't want to dwell in the past. I admit, before I really knew any better, I got some music. I don't know which ones, but I know that I got some music that I shouldn't have. Thing is, now I've become an advocate, especially in the round dance community. By the way, that's why I'm on this panel and on the committee from the round dance cure point of view, although I've been affiliated with square dancing a lot longer. And it's a matter of, okay, we may have done it, but now how do we stop other people from doing it in the future if we ourselves have stopped? I have a scenario. In other words, and I see very often the starting point for, wow, that was easy to copy and I didn't spend the money, is I see a caller and there's a round dance program going on during the square dancing, and there's a really neat piece of pop music that the caller knows will make a great pattern. Oh, wow. Where'd you get that music? Bingo, the keyword gives them the music. Doesn't see anything wrong with that. It's not square dance music, it's pop music. It's like your friend has a CD, Beach Boys, and say, oh, here's a copy of it. We used to do that all the time. I didn't know it was illegal. All right, so, someone just, I had teachers at school. I got a whole collection of Bobby Darin music that I didn't pay for. I would never do that again. I wouldn't, because I know better. But back then, I didn't know any better. Another scenario, and we want to talk, Elmer talked about what the problem is and what it's going to do to the music industry. I'm a little more focused on what are you going to do about it? In other words, let's say you're at a dance, caller, great piece of music, you go up, what record is that? What label? And the caller says, you got a stick? I'll give it to you. And a lot of your responses would be, oh, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. That's not enough. All you've done is say, okay, refused it, and I'll go buy it. And the caller doesn't understand the implications of what they were trying to do. My response now is they want to give me the music. Are you the record producer? And if they say no, I'm going to say, well, why are you stealing their money? And I was at a play last week with Betsy, and before the theater they said, would everybody please turn off your cell phones or set them to stun? I thought that was appropriate. So in other words, yeah, will you probably make an enemy? Sure, temporarily. But in other words, saying no isn't enough. And this is what we're looking to get from you guys once again, is what else can be done. We don't want to take this outside. Going to Harry Fox or BMI or ASCAP is just going to open up a huge can of, for them, whoop ass on us. They'll destroy our industry. So, did I have anything else? No. We're trying to keep our stuff short so we can get more input from you guys. And I'll turn it over to Wade Driver.
Thank you, sir. Question. When you're driving along in the middle of your hometown and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and there's not a soul anywhere around and the light's red, do you stop? You go to the bathroom, it has a sign that says, please wash your hands before you come out. Do you? How many guys have had a house guest over the last year? Did they steal anything out of your house? Yeah, I'm sorry. Tact is not my stronger suit. It's theft. There's no other way to put it. It's just plain theft. And if you use music that you have not paid for, you're stealing from whomever cut it, whether it's a Square Dance label, whether it's a pop label. And it's like, I know Mike has a permanent account with Amazon. And if something comes out he wants to call, there are guys that put out music and they extend them and they do a great job of creating the thing. So he just goes online and he just buys the original. Then you're guilt free. But it's really expensive, guys. It's 99 cents. And I was just saying, I have 97 holdouts in my computer. If every one of them was one of those, it would cost me all of $96 to be legal. That's not that big of a price. And I said something this morning, and in my opinion, the measure of a man's character and integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's watching. It's as simple as that. Do it because it's the right thing. Now, we made, I think, a great deal of progress at this morning's Piracy Committee meeting, and we had fantastic ideas that we hope to pursue down the line. It's at this point, I don't think it's time for punitive action. It's time for education. First of all, there's so many, many, many people out there that don't even realize that this is stealing. It's stealing. You're taking something that doesn't belong to you and using it for purposes to make your money. Okay? Now, I see guys that don't want to spend 99 cents on buying a new piece of music, but I ain't seen them not put that check in the bank when they finish calling. All right? So, and that 99 cents is part of that. You pay for the privilege of getting on stage to call. And at my age, believe me, it's a privilege. I never know how long I'm going to be able to do it, So it's just the right thing to do. So what we feel like we need to do worldwide is to educate our peers, our little body, our family of callers, that this is what constitutes music piracy, and this is why, and please help us spread the word so it doesn't happen anymore, or at least we can cut it down. And if we do that, yeah, it's going to keep us in business, and yeah, we might make a little more money, and yeah, Amazon might cut, but the main thing is, yeah, we're going to feel good, and yeah, we're going to set the bar that maybe everybody else will follow and do it the right way. And that's what we're about. It's just as simple as that.
Kind of what we'd like to do, if you don't mind, is have you give us some feedback. You tell us if we're wrong or if we're approaching this thing the wrong way, or you think we're just whining about missing a few sales or whatever. But we would really appreciate it if you would just raise your hand up and we'll give you this microphone. Uncle Tom here will hand it to you, and you can ask us about anything you want to.
Used to, it burned down.
Somebody at one point said, well, what about CALLERLAB's policy that we as an organization do not compete, with our members. Now here we are. It looks like CALLERLAB might be siding with these, producers to help promote them and promote their product. And that's not it at all. What we're trying to do is protect the activity. And I think it's important to note that, because most of us really see the value that the music brings to us, where it would be. I don't know about you, as a caller myself, I get excited about a new piece of music, especially when it's good music. I really, really do. And it's the kind of thing that it's like I can't wait to go do it. And the dancers feel that enthusiasm also. They really, really do. And so I don't want to lose that opportunity. I don't want to lose that tool. It helps me, makes my job a lot easier and a lot more fun. Tom? Sir, your name?
Ray Ainsworth from Eros, Louisiana. I've just wondered whether any of the producers have pursued a method, at least on MP3s and CDs, to embed a blocker that would prevent it from being copied direct. Now, that wouldn't stop what's already out there, but it might stop it in the future if that were done. And I believe that we have technology to do that.
John told me his cord was longer than mine, so I'll use his. And that's novel. You ready for this? Don't blush on me. There it goes. Anyway, yeah, no. I have spoken with somebody who is an expert in that field. We have not discussed a blocker, but we have discussed embedding in an MP3 file that when it's played, it says license to, so on. All right. And if you're on stage calling with somebody and they start to use a song and this guy's name is John Jones and it says license to Mike Smith, we have a problem there, all right? So we haven't gotten to that point, but that's one of the possibilities that we can do for identifying there. And I'm sure there's probably the capability of embedding a blocker. And what we so far, based on this morning's meeting, and we're having another meeting of just the committee at 5:30 this afternoon, our approach is going to be, again, rather than punitive at this point, rather than embarrassing everybody at this point, let's educate everybody at this point and see if the larger majority of the people in our activity are not willing, because I don't think we have a whole activity full of thieves. It's just something we've all done, some to lesser and greater degrees, but let's see if we can just educate them and police ourselves first, and then from that point, then we'll do what's necessary.
Jay Haynes from Lansdale, Pennsylvania. I think everything in my music case and on my computer are legal. Okay, and in order to keep it that way, I go to decimated.com and I buy something, and if it's available for download only, I'll download it. I recently ordered something, and what came back was a shipping thing with the things that I got, and one that was missing, and it didn't say back ordered. It said not available. Now, I know somebody who's got that, but it's not available anymore. How do I get that piece of music?
Well, the first thing I would do, and it may not help at all, you say you ordered it from Palomino? You know who produced the piece of music to begin with? Well, about the first thing you could do would be to try to get in touch with the producer. In all honesty, I have some music that shows up on Palomino Dosido's site that says no longer available, but I still have it. He just hasn't reordered it for whatever reason. Maybe he thinks it's too old to have on the shelf, but I do still have some of it, and it's probably on 45s, but it could still be, converted to CD. But first thing I would do if I wanted a piece of music and it came back not available, I'd try to get a hold of whoever produced it originally, and in my case, and I'm sure probably in Wade's case, I've had callers email me or write me and say, I really would like to have a copy of something we did maybe 20 years ago, and I may have the only copy in my record case, and I send it to them because it's mine. That's my prerogative. But then I don't have a copy of it. But if a caller wants it, I'd rather he'd have it. But that's what I would do.
Really nothing different except a really good rule of thumb is if you can buy it, buy it. If it can't be bought, use it. Simple as that. And because some things are in eminent domain, and for example, we have a couple of tunes that I'm out of. You can't buy them anywhere, and I'm never going to repress them. And I have them committed to MP3, and if somebody wants it, I'll give you the record or whatever. And like, for example, the old McGregor Alabama Jubilee. I don't think you can buy that thing anywhere, anytime, anyway. And if somebody wants it, I have a copy. I'll be glad to give you a copy of the MP3 because I know you're not going to buy it anywhere. You bet your sweet life on that. And so the basic rule of thumb, if it's for sale anywhere, then you ought to buy it. If it's not, then it doesn't matter.
Also, what Roy just reminded me, in particular, only if it were an ESP record or only if it were a rhythm record. But if we had a record and you wanted it and it's not available anywhere, and maybe we got the only copy left in existence, we can make you a CD ourselves. Yes, we can do that. I mean, we're the producers. We have that right. I couldn't make you a copy of Wade's record, but that's what I do. I get a hold of whoever produced it and say, hey, can you help me? Because I do have still some old stuff that probably nobody else still has of my own.
John Herr from Denver. Relative to what can we do to slow things down, first of all, I think I was really impressed with the fact that in your program you have here this year, at least 3 sessions discuss this issue. That goes a long way for telling people this is important. Secondly, we in Roundalab are doing the same thing. We're putting a great deal of emphasis on this item. In fact, Karen and I just wrote an article which will go out in this journal, this next quarterly journal, that gives, like you said, Wade, more education. Not just don't do it, but what is it you can do and what is it you can't do. We need to help people understand those two different things. Okay? Another thing is that most of us in here are involved in some leadership capacity in other organizations. Your local organizations. I would be surprised if there's people here who are not in a leadership position. We need to take advantage of every position we hold where we have influence and push it in those organizations also, and we can do that.
Trevor Day from Manchester, England. There's a couple of things on there. If you want a copy of a piece of music, by all means on then the main thing is get back in touch with the producer. Because if 40 people suddenly say to them that they want that piece of music, they're more than likely going to find some way of meeting that need, whether it be CD, MP3, or you never know, they might even repress it if you ask them, if enough people ask them.
I think this is such a ripe time for this organization to stand up and educate its members and do its best to educate the general public, callers and queuers, and in general, just take a stand that we are going to pledge to make sure that all of the music that's in our computer or all the music that we're using that we have purchased. And if we can do that, whether we take a pledge, whether we end up putting it on the CALLERLAB contracts, whether we end up putting that on the national convention that we would sign when we sign our name is to call the national convention that we will not use music, that our music will have been all properly, legally acquired. I like that in a positive sense, and I think that would do huge things for our organization, and I think the time is right now.
Sidney Marshall from Rochester, New York. I have two different things. One is it would be very nice for out-of-print music and that sort of thing is to have some kind of a clearinghouse rather than have everybody try and figure out how to wend their way through the process. So I have this record. I want this. Where is the best way to get it? And I just want to make a technical comment. I would not buy any music that had any copy protection in it because it would make it impossible for me to use it legally. Now, if you want to embed something so you can tell the source of that music, that's okay. I mean, provided it doesn't hurt the quality of it. If you have fingerprinting and that kind of thing, that'd be fine. But if it's copy protected, it just means it won't work. I mean, I can't use it legally. So, anyway, that's all I had to say.
I want to go back to Jay's question about music that's not available. And I had a question about that, and I actually asked some producers, and I asked some vendors. I asked Tom. And because not all of the old record labels are still in business, where they've been bought out by somebody else. For instance, Palomino owns several of the older labels, and they bought all the old stock that went out of business. So why shouldn't I be able to copy that from somebody else? Now, I'm just saying the question, okay. First of all, it's illegal. Second, let's say, the record producer gets these 30 requests. He says, you know what, I'm going to repress that record. Meanwhile, those 30 people have copied it illegally, and they're not going to get those sales. The thing to do is, all right, so let's say you wanted an old Western Jubilee record. Well, they're out of business. Palomino owns all those rights. Call up and say, I'm looking through this. Okay, if you ever re-release it, could you please put me on a list to get that record? Now, I'm sure there's other people out there. They're just going to copy the record, even if they say, put me on the list. But at least if you say, call me, put me on the list, maybe you copied it illegally. But then when they do re-release it, hopefully you'll do the right thing and buy the damn record. But that's the reason you can't copy it even if it's unavailable, because then if it does become available, now you've taken the money away from the people who took the time to re-release it because there were so many requests for it. Is that right?
Bob Pointer, Florida. I just was visiting with Tom Dillander, and Tom asked me to set in on this session for the purpose of this piracy stuff. And also for the music that's no longer available. Some of the reasons that it's not available is when Tom bought a lot of these labels and took them over, the masters had been destroyed. So the music isn't there on a lot of this stuff. So it would depend on what record he's talking about. And if he would contact Tom and talk to Tom, Tom could tell him personally who produced that record and how he could get it taken care of. But just a little information for you all. If we don't stop this stuff, we're going to put Tom out of business on the Square Dance records. While I was there, and this is March? 3 months into the year, he has already made more money doing commercial work than he did all of last year for Square Dance music. That tells me that there's a lot of piracy out there. Guys not buying music. And Tom says we're going to put him out of business if we don't start buying records. So y'all go out and buy some records. Thank you.
Brad Smith from Indiana. I'm a new guy at this business, and I'm nothing but vinyl. Is there any way that CALLERLAB could possibly set up something in their website where somebody's looking for a record that they could enter into it? Like the one I'm looking for is off the Eagle album. It's Mariah. It hasn't been in print for years. Yeah, and
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but anyway, Oh, well, but anyway, if you're looking for a specific song, and maybe somebody's got one out there they don't do anymore, and you could make contact with each other, that you could arrange payment for it, to get together. Because I know when I first got started, I had old callers, widows that their husbands had died. I got boxes of old records that back in the 50s and stuff like that I'll never use and stuff, but there's still some real good stuff out there if it could be found that's no longer in print anymore.
Two sources to share. I mean, that's certainly a good idea. We can certainly take it back to home office and see about the possibility of creating a space on our website, kind of a bulletin board, looking for this, looking for that. If you have it, contact so-and-so. Now, understand, they have to know they can't just give you a copy. They have to give you theirs, period. They cannot retain a copy for themselves. They have the right to give it away. They don't have the right to sell it, as I understand it, and they definitely don't have the right to keep a copy and give you one. So that needs to be cautiously handled. You'll see that type of want needed type ad on the Hanhurst system. If you are subscribing to that, you'll see, certain equipment for sale, certain records wanted, looking for a certain piece of equipment. There's a certain amount of space that Tom provides for that, where you could do it. Also, if it's old music, the Square Dance Foundation of New England, which costs all of $12 a year to be a member, if they have, Tom, go up there, Mary wants to say something. If they have multiple copies of a given piece of music and you're a member, they will give it to you at no charge. And they will, they can ask for a donation. I'm a lifetime member, so I've done all I can donate. Mary won't let me give anymore. But I did find, speaking of Western Jubilee, I was looking for their old Put a Light in the Window that they had done, and I found it there. So I was pleased with that. So there's a couple of sources, but I will certainly go back and to see about the possibility of our doing something like that on the website where members could go in and submit information they're looking for, but it has to be understood whether they have the right to do that. Thank you.
Tom Miller from Pennsylvania. Something that you might want to do also is, especially if you're a newer caller and you're looking for a piece of music that's pretty hard to find, go to some of the guys that's been calling for 30, 40 years. For instance, like Rockin' and Rosalie's Boat, Ring My Bell, Good Morning Country Rain. A lot of us guys, when they first came out and we knew that they were going to be a hot piece of music, we bought 3 or 4 copies. So there's a chance that somebody in the business has 3 or 4 copies of a song that we bought for some reason because we like that particular. I know at home I've got duplicates of Glore on songs that was recorded back in the late 70s and the early 80s that I really liked. I have 3 or 4 copies. Pass them away? Give them away? Wade?
Yeah, well, in my understanding, if you haven't converted to MP3, you've only got one vinyl, give it to anybody you want to. But you can't call it anymore, but obviously you can't because you won't have it anymore. But now the problem comes in if you make an MP3 copy, then give the vinyl away. No. Can't do that. You bought them all.
I bought 4 records.
You bought them all.
So let's say Mike wants a copy of Rockin' Rosalie's Boat. Yeah, Mike, I got an extra copy.
Well, you had to pay for it.
I paid for it.
Why not?
So I can pass that on to Mike.
I think it all boils down to, and if you really use common sense, licensing. All right? Do you own the license to call that? You own the license to call 4 different records if you have 4 copies. And when you give that away, you don't have a license to use that anymore, but you got 3 others, so you're fine. Now, this is with the MP3 thing. If you convert your record over to MP3 and you give away that record, you're giving away your license to call that thing. You just giving it away, and you just can't do that. Yeah, and then delete your MP3, you can give it away all you want.
My concern is that there's a huge impact already. How many get a tape service every month? How many just read by show of hands? So a good majority of you do in here. And I'm sure now when you get that tape or you get that CD or however you get it, that you realize that only about a third, and sometimes less than a third. I think there were only 8 new releases on the last month's CD. Everything else was repressed, and some of it was really old. Now, I know in my heart, I've been calling now 47 years, and I've got a lot of that old music already in my garage. And I know that we're trying to take this activity to future generations. And when I listen to that old music, I really don't think we're going to take this activity to our future generations, our kids, our grandkids, and on with that music that was recorded back in 1960 or 1970, or we can play it, and that can be part of the variety of what we play in our program. But if all we're buying is that music back there and we're not buying new stuff, how can we expect our activity to move forward and move on to younger generations? I think we are holding this activity back. So the process of not encouraging more music by buying some of the old stuff or even looking for some of the old stuff, leave that old stuff and let's move forward, because we're trying to move this activity forward.
I'd also tell you that we've done a lot of investigation, the CALLERLAB board. We've talked to attorneys, copyright attorneys, intellectual property rights attorneys, and you can't get a consensus. You can't get a consistent answer from them. Even people who are in the recording industry can't give consistent answers because the laws were never designed for today's technology. So we have a problem. Well, part of the problem is what we're addressing here. We need to protect our opportunity to have new and continuing music. That's what we need to do, rather than be too hung up on old music. I don't have a problem with good old music. Good is good. I mean, I still use rhythm music and ESP music that's not new, that I've bought. Mary and I, between us, we have 3,000 pieces of vinyl in our garage right now. And if it's good, it's still good in many cases. But we can't get a clean, legal answer to these things, and everybody has an opinion. So let's do the right thing and buy music as we go and keep going forward with it. I understand the question about stuff that's out of press and so on. Those are concerns, but there's good new stuff that could be made if the producers have any incentive at all other than losing money.
Pour some water on him. We're hungry. Okay, here we go. God, I tell you, in some ways it's a good thing, in some ways it's bad. But the American way today is, no matter what it is, let's think outside the box and let's find another way to do it. And, unfortunately, no matter what you come up with, it's like a computer hacker. Oh, I can get around that. Well, yeah, you can always get around it. But why don't you just play with the rules and do it the right way? Instead of if people would spend half the energy they figure in trying to avoid that red light, just stop at the red light and go down the road. And you're way ahead of the game.
Mary Hutchinson from Virginia. Just going back for a moment to the idea of a clearinghouse on the CALLERLAB website for people looking for particular pieces of music. There's another possible source to look at. Vic Cedar, one of our members, has an extensive collection of music that he's gathered over the years. In some cases, he owns multiple copies of some records. He has a list of those records that he has multiple copies of. He also has a listing of records that he would like to have a copy of. And so on his website, you can look and see if you might have extra copies of a piece that he's looking for and work out a trade where you can trade legally pieces of music but that he's looking for one that you're looking for, that sort of thing.
Robert Hurst from England. Excuse me. Several things. I think the idea of a bulletin board would be quite a good idea, because we could also then put some form of message on there saying, don't copy, don't share this. Several other things. I had a discussion with Tom Dillinger some time ago, and he was telling me that actually there is a record which they keep of every single MP3 that is sold. I know they don't do it with vinyl, but it is done with the MP3. So if you have got a copy of an MP3, Tom will be able to tell you whether you got that legally or not. So, if you are thinking morally, I would look at your record box. Other thoughts and other things is, I was talking to Wade earlier, and I know he's got one record in the pipeline to come out. I don't know whether Elmer's got any. I can tell you that Sting Records, Paul Bristow's label, they haven't put out any records for several months, and at the moment haven't got any plans to do so because they're not selling. Royal Records, I know, put out their platinum once a year, but again, talking to some of the guys from Royal Records, they were struggling this year to actually sell the full complement, and if they can't sell the full complement, they won't continue. And from a personal point of view, I was lucky enough to record a record which came out last November, and if you take one large USA state and ask yourself how many callers are in that state, I can tell you that my record, even though at number 8 in the chart, sold less copies than all the callers in one single state of the USA. And that was the worldwide sales. That's how bad the sales are now.
Back to the idea of publicity. Oh, Jay Haynes, sorry, Lansdale, Pennsylvania. Somebody suggested we write up what you can do, what you can't do, and make that available to the membership. The first thing that came to mind was direction. Second thought would be a trifold brochure of some sort. It probably would be a big article in direction. So but how else are you going to get the message out? I would guess most of the membership reads direction. I don't know that there's anything. You can't just put it on the website and expect people will have read it. You got to put it in their hands. And maybe they get it electronic direction, but still, if they read it, they'll have read your message. I don't know how else you're going to get it into the hands of everyone.
We have a meeting yet to discuss that, and that's part of our agenda, is to decide how to get this stuff into the right hands so that you know what's right and what's wrong and what's legal and what's illegal.
Otto Waterman from Texas. I was really encouraged yesterday in my presentation to the community dance program. In it, I use a really wide variety of music. I use some old stuff, but I use a lot of dance music that's through the recreational activities labels and such. And everyone that came to me wanting to know what my music was or wanting to know where to get it, not one of them asked me for a copy. All right, second item, go to eBay, do a search. Put your name in there and ask, does anyone have this? There's another resource, because there's a lot of music being put on eBay, and it's just like y'all are talking about records that are being given to you. Wade knows that there's a bunch of round dance leaders that have passed away in the Houston market, and I have all their records. I have the old 78s going back to the 30s, and I don't know what the hell to do with them.
Dave, you're Levon, Texas. You talk about communication and how to get this out. And Mike, when I used to be on the Caller Liaison Committee chair, that was one battle we had. Our job, or the job of that committee, is to be a voice of CALLERLAB. Maybe you might want to use the Caller Liaison Committee, the Canadian Council, and the Overseas Caller. Those three committees were set up to be a communications avenue. Scenario, that document that Mike produced might be a start as a piece of information about
this piracy thing going on and how to educate the members of this organization and callers around the world. Because it's not just the callers that are members of this organization, but it's all callers in the local areas or by state. Currently, I believe there's like 24 state reps in the Caller Liaison Committee that's supposed to be used for communication. And that may be an avenue to get the word out.
Virgil Forbes from Maryland. I'd like to go back for just a moment to the idea of who has the rights to some of the defunct labels. And I just heard 3 or 4 label names used with who has the current rights. And I know, I know Buddy has the rights to a bunch and Tom has the rights to a bunch, but I don't think there's any single list out there. Would it be possible to create a list, whether on website or for Palomino to do it, giving a list of here's who owns the rights for these labels, and oh, by the way, here's a much longer list of we don't know who owns the rights to this label. If you know anybody who has the information, please contact us.
That could probably be done, and Tom at Palomino would probably come as close as anybody in knowing that, since he distributes all the labels as far as I know. I would imagine he could tell you who owns, because labels have been sold and given away and gone out of business, and so. But I would say he would be the place I would go if I want a list of who controls certain labels, because he has a bunch of them himself.
Tom Miller from Pennsylvania. I got to tell you, I in 2002 I had the great privilege of going onto the ESP label with Junior, and needless to say, I was pretty excited. I'm still excited to be there because it's a great label. The music that we do is just incredible. We keep the up-to-date music with the country western music and so forth. But over the last several years, it has become just terrifying to listen to these stories that Junior tells about record sales and the money that he has put in to not a whole lot of records to produce the records, and then turn around and not getting anything back in regards. I mean, it's pretty scary. And yes, we all have a lot of records in our cases and so forth that we can go back and we can say, well, we don't have to buy new music and so forth. But let me tell you something. If you don't hear a new song by George Strait, whether it's done by Wade or Elmer or a Randy Travis song and so forth, and you think that's a pretty hot title, it's not going to happen. It just because of the fact being is that it's going away. And as a recording artist, it scares me. Just probably not because of myself, but because of Junior, because this is the love of the activity. Junior will tell you himself that ESP Records is just a hobby. This is what he loves to do, and he's been doing it for a long time. And I can hear it in Elmer's voice that there's a little bit of frightening going on. I mean, he's scared to think that his main hobby that he loves to do, the recording side, is one of these days he's going to wake up and it's going to be going out the window. And we have nobody to thank but ourselves. And, so we need to sink the pirate ships, guys. We need to get them out of the water. Yes, we're all guilty. When it first happened years back, we were all guilty. There were sticks flying all over the place. But you don't see those sticks too much anymore, do you? And I think that seminars like this and panels like this has the education side of it that kind of has kind of frightening. It has us backed into a corner that we're kind of scared. But I think it's a corner that we can get out of if we use our professionalism as square dance callers and say, no. Listen, guys, I can't give you this music because it is wrong. So we need to step up to the plate and be that team player. We don't need to be the little bat boy that carries the bat and goes back in the dugout and doesn't say anything. We need to step up to the plate and be that team player and direct the avenue that we need to take so we can get rid of these seminars down the road. So just my thought.
Thank you, Tom. Let me mention, too, that one idea that you've seen come to fruition when the whole BMI and ASCAP issue raised its head and scared everybody so badly, and we stepped up for that. You notice we changed the CALLERLAB contract template that many dance groups use, and that template is available, to anybody online. But they have since modified it, and part of that lines are you are testing that you will be BMI ASCAP licensed at the time of the performance that you provide to that event. And one thought that has been presented is that we may also put in a line stating where you are attesting to the fact that you are only using legally obtained music. It doesn't mean somebody won't sign it anyway, but it's one more piece of making somebody be reminded every time they sign one. Yeah, we've been talking on getting it done. And if it sounds to any of you like we're, admonishing you, that's not it at all. Obviously, if you didn't care, you wouldn't be here. But if you'll take the message back and share it with other callers and cuers and so on, but what the concerns are, that would be a big help, because then you folks will actually be doing outreach on behalf of CALLERLAB and on behalf of the activity. And that's important to know. I've heard from some callers who only use vinyl, and that's probably all they will ever use. And some of them, understandably, are a little tired of feeling like they're being talked at. Why do you keep talking to me about this? I don't do it. It's not part of me. Why am I being made to feel like I'm doing something wrong? And I understand how they would feel that way. And my answer to them has always been, we really aren't talking at you. But the more you hear about this, the more you realize what a big issue it is in the activity. And we appreciate the fact that you're using your technology the way you use it, and that you're continuing to buy records, and that's wonderful. And we're not harping on you, but it's just too important to not keep that information out in front of people.
I know. Let's look at it kind of like multi-level marketing. All right, we want to sell you. We want to talk to you so you'll go sell other folks. All right, if we can sell you and you can sell 5 and they can each sell 5 and they can each sell 5, we're going to pretty much get everybody on board. All right, so you just happen to be in our line of sight when we start harping. All right, we just ask you to pass it down the road.
Mike Seastrom, Los Angeles. An interesting thing was brought up in the committee, and it was Jerry Junk that actually brought the point home, and I kind of feel the same way. It's been something I've seen over the last couple of years that is alarming. That Jerry said that the number of callers he comes across in his travels when he is traveling around the country, the number of callers that he works with who have not bought square dance music in 5, 10 years, 3 years, 4 years, that are using music they've been using forever. And it's alarming that these callers have not thought enough of other dancers, their dancers, to maybe update something, to change something. I know as a caller myself, I love to get new music. It's exciting. It makes me more excited as a caller. But I also know that I'm also trying to move my music forward to maybe other generations. And I think that it is alarming. And I've heard callers complain about $7 a record. When I first started calling in the 1963, it was $1 for a record. And I think at that time we paid 23 cents or 20 cents for a gallon of gas. And when you start to think what we pay for a gallon of gas today, and 10 times, okay, or more, and what we're charging for records today, $7 is not a lot to pay for a record. Now that same mentality goes throughout our entire activity. People at the door, oftentimes, we're one of the reasons we can't afford halls to square dancing anymore is because our door fee is so low that we can't afford halls. Now, you go to a ballroom dance, you go to a polka dance, you go to any kind of dance like that, and you're going to at least pay $10 a head. But we've got a mentality in square dancing that says, well, we should only charge $4. When I did a panel at a 2001 convention at the National, and we talked about where are all the square dance halls, it was the Square Dance Council members, the presidents of the Square Dance Council, that had a flip chart, and they just flipped through the price of milk, the price of a gallon of gas, the price of a movie, the price of bowling, and the price of square dancing. And square dancing was the only one of all of those who had not kept up with inflation. That we were still paying $4 to get in the door when it was back in 1960, and it was 1960 to 2000, because this was in 2001 at the National. So I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that $7 is too much today. Granted, you can get it for 99 cents on Amazon.com, but you're talking about a different audience. In our niche, if we want people to come square dancing, I've talked to some of my friends, and they think it's only $4. God, it can't be worth that much. Have you taken lessons, ballroom dance lessons, or have you taken lessons any place and seen what the cost of that is these days? It's incredible. So I think this mentality is driving our activity in the ground. It's driving the sales of new music into the ground and preventing us, this little niche activity that is just a niche, from moving forward. So I think we need to try to encourage other callers also, not only to not copy music, but get something new in your record case. Get something to get excited about. And $7 is not all that much to buy a record.
I did a little speech at CALLERLAB a couple of years ago, and some of you may have been there, and some of you may have not. But the price of records, square dance records, as a producer, I can tell you that I hate it. I wished I could sell you my records for $1 a piece, but supply and demand sets the price. I can tell you that I'm probably I hate to say the oldest record producer, because Wade's older than me, but I have been in the record business longer than most, and I can honestly tell you that I started recording in the days that it was absolutely not unusual at all for every record we produced to sell over 10,000 copies. If a record, when I was recording with Don Williamson on Red Boot, if I did a record for him and it sold less than 5,000, he was trying to find out what happened and why. So we sold a bunch of records. Now, over the years, we've seen that just steadily go. And I'm telling you guys, honest face to face, that today it takes 3 to 6 months to sell 100 copies of anything, and lots of times that's MP3s, vinyl, and CDs. So you can see where we came from 10,000. We didn't have MP3s then. We didn't have CDs. We just had them pretty little old black records with a hole in the middle, which I still use. But now the market is just so slim until we need the guys to buy records, not to fatten my pocket, but just to make it so that I can keep producing music for you, because I love doing it, and I want you to have new music, good music.
Tom asked me to remind you, if you didn't notice, that out at the products or sales table, they are selling little pins that say, "Don't share the music." And I think they're $1. Oh, yep. Roy has one. Okay. They're like $1. And you might wear that to help, again, carry the message, just to carry the message. If you were curious why Mike hesitated about the cost of gas, is because at that time he wasn't old enough to drive. And that's why he doesn't remember. But, so look for a different analogy next time, Mike. And see, actually, y'all were very nice, and everybody was very kind here. Nobody said a thing to Elmer about, wax cylinders.
Yeah, when I started calling, we used a big megaphone. Then they got into turntables and high-tech stuff, and now we're into stuff that I can't even hardly pronounce the name of.
No, it was not either.
Yeah, it was not. Back in the early 1900s, y'all know where the word tip came from, square dance tip? Because back then they used to call it dance, but they didn't have bands, didn't have audio, no amplification system. So you might have 8 squares on the floor. Each square had its own color. So they weren't doing the same thing. This guy's calling this one this, and when that little set ended, when the bands, the fiddle player and all quit, you tipped your color in your square. They don't happen no more.
Did you make much money back then? Did you make much money back then?
The disappointing part is that, when I'm calling to 8 squares, there are not 8 colors, there's just one, but all 8 squares are still doing something different.
John, Tom Miller from Pennsylvania, I asked Wade a question since you threw some a question out there about the tip and so forth. Do you know what the first square dance label was? No, it was actually Ford Records, owned by Henry Ford, and Thomas Edison was the producer for Ford Records. I think you can still get that label. It's about that big. They had 2 holes in.
Now, let's kind of step back. This is fun, and I enjoy this. Does anybody have anything else they want to share as far as ideas that you might have for us to take back, whether it be to CallerLab or to our own associations or fellow callers? That's what everybody's looking for, is some way to help stem this thing. And Trevor
Day from Manchester, England. The other thing I think we've got to do as well on there is everybody within CallerLab knows about this problem, is that we've got to get it to the people that aren't in callers associations on there, because unfortunately on there the number of people that are members of CallerLab compared with the number of square dance callers is only a relatively small number, and it's that bigger market that we've got to get this message to.
We wear so many hats as it is. Now we have to put another one on, become the piracy police, because that's exactly what needs to be done to stop this.
Bob Pointer, Florida. Just want to make the comment about the difference between not available and out of print. Not available means that either the master's been destroyed and it is no longer available, period, due to certain reasons. But if it's out of print, that does not mean that Tom can't print it more. All he has to do is go back. For example, Beautiful Noise. Elmer was talking about how many copies have been sold on certain records. Jack Berg recorded that Beautiful Noise. It sold over 20,000 copies. Unheard of today's age, which we'd be really thrilled to death if we could. But the last time he went to reproduce that one, to print it again, he had to go back and get the license again from Harry Fox. And he almost didn't get it. He had to work very hard to get it, because the artist who put it out to begin with on the pop record wouldn't give it to him in the beginning. And Jack had to work very hard to get it, but they did finally manage to get it. So that may be part of the problem too. But if Elmer has one that's no longer in print and hasn't been pressed in a while, Tom can press it, and he will press a minimum copy, which is like, I think he told me the other day, he would, if somebody wanted one, he would probably press 6 copies. Because he can set up, if he has time, he can set up and run 6 copies. Because then he has some on the shelf. Because if that guy goes out and plays that record, and everybody says, "Well, where'd you get that record?" Then they'll say, "Oh, Palomino Records, and then he'll sell another record. Thank you.
I think it's worth noting also that we've used that number $7 a few times. That's not what the record producers get. That's what that record is retailing for. So there's always the markup issues that come along with it. So I think that's worth noting. If people think these guys are getting rich, not happening.
Ray Ainsworth, Eris, Louisiana. Another way that you might give reminders to callers who do buy music from you and then might want to share with someone else is to, if you provide a cue sheet with the MP3 or the CD or in whatever form that cue sheet might be, is put your message on there that not to copy the music.
John Herr, just a quick reminder, when you buy music off the internet, make sure you keep the receipts.
Anybody else?
If we are, I'm happy to sit and visit, but if you have another session you'd like to pick up a few minutes on, you certainly are free to do that, and or start your coffee break early if they put stuff out. But we very much appreciate you coming in and sharing your ideas and listening to us. And if you get any brainstorms, don't keep them to yourself. Make sure you carry the message and also share back with us any special ideas that come up. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you, folks. Thanks to the panel.